Hi guys, welcome back. You already know me. I'm Harry. I work for JZ. I'm the content creator and the community manager for all of you who might not know who I am. Today, we are going to be talking about the last installment on preamps. Now, there's a way to go about kind of setting up preamps and figuring out which ones you want to use. And usually, when I was growing up, one of the main things that I was doing was kind of reading a lot of the stuff that I was seeing online, to be completely honest with you. And that wasn't always the best option. I'm just going to readjust my mic. But the reason why is because a lot of people don't kind of shoot out things and A-B them in the way that I've grown maybe accustomed to, shall we say. So today I kind of want to show you that in case you weren't doing it already in this way, and also to kind of, if you're completely new to preamps or different flavors, I wanted to kind of give you a bit more of an idea of what to expect and how to expect it, I guess. First off, let's dive straight into this project, and then as we go in, I'll explain each one of the choices that I've made, the companies that have made these emulations, and why I've chosen these emulations as opposed to others. The one that, a lot of people might be expecting is UAD. I don't have a UAD card. I'm not really averse to their plugins, but I know they are good. So that is an option, and I know they are very good. I've heard those plugins before. I've worked with them. Not on my own setup, but I've worked with them. So if that's what you have at your disposal, then by all means, they are brilliant. But for now, what I'm going to do is just kind of show you some more native plugins where you don't have to have an extra card inside your computer or your Mac. You can just download these or buy these or demo these and until your heart is content, and then try them out and buy them when you like to. But the whole focus today, instead of focusing on maybe dedicated preamps so you have and the makeup of those preamps, is more to kind of show you if you don't have that available and you have just a good interface. And to be honest, in today's day and age, most interfaces are very, very clean. They have super, super low distortion. They're extremely linear. And they're kind of designed to allow you to put in another preamp behind it without kind of coloring it even further, or if you wanted to use an emulation, then you can do that as well. So, like I say, let's dive in and have a little listen to what I've got in store. So, the first thing I'm going to do is kind of talk about the session that I've got up. Now, I've got these 4 different projects uploaded here. And on each one of these projects, I've got a different emulation of a different manufacturer or a different kind of timbre or color, if you will. Now, a couple of them are British, but they're British in a different way. And you're going to hear a lot of geographical kind of terms or kind of comparing geographical location to the way that it sounds. That's a really, really good thing to kind of get used to, I guess. I don't like it, but it's just the way that it is, and it's the way that it was kind of coined very early on. So we're going to go through a couple of different ones. Now, I've got one company in particular who have shone above all else for me. I absolutely love these plugins, and they have many affiliates with them as well. So it's not necessarily the overall umbrella company. They might have another person or another group of people that have built these plugins. A good example of that is Brainworks, who pretty much have 3 of these emulations. And I chose to go with these emulations just because they're all available in one subscription, or you can kind of buy them for a much lower price than what you can buy from maybe like their official counterpart, for example, which also, by the way, sound great. I just really like these plugins in particular. So the Neve 80 series channel is the first we're going to start on, and then we're going to move on to the API channel, which is also from Lindell Audio. And then we're going to move on to the SSL, which is a different type of British kind of sound. Similar, but different in the way that it kind of goes about how it does. And then lastly, we're going to go for a bit more of a German and very old school sound, which is still revered until this day. So in order to go through all this, and the main thing you might see on this screen is I've got all these green lights lit up. Now, if I go over to the red lights, this is going to be completely bypassed. And this is kind of the trick that I wanted to talk to you guys about. I say trick loosely. It's more just a way of actually listening to the raw material and then listening to what you're trying to affect on the signal. I find that doing this over a group of tracks for one specific instrument, as opposed to doing it on a soloed track and trying to intently listen, quite often I found in my early days I was almost fooling myself to hear what I was reading or what other people told me I should be listening for, and I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I can hear that, lower mid-range, and I wasn't. Like, looking back on it now, my ears were so untrained, and I wish that someone had done a video like this where, if you're part of the community, I put up a post yesterday that described these as being subtle yet obvious changes, and they're not overly apparent, and when you bypass them or add them back in, to be honest, the most you're really going to hear is maybe a smoothing effect of the transients, which is almost similar to having a very fast attack and a very slow release on a compressor, or you're going to hear a bit more of a punch, which again is the opposite, very slow attack on the compressor and a very fast release on the compressor. But just because of the makeup of these consoles, you kind of get that inherently from them. The ones that are super punchy straight off the bat, and a spoiler alert in case you want to find this out for yourself and listen to them as you go, and this isn't in any way to kind of taint the results, but you'll find that British style preamps, no matter what they are, usually have a bit more of a punch. They have a really tight low end to them. They're really harmonically rich in especially like the lower mid-range, and you'll find that they can be a bit gritty, and they add a bit more obvious distortion to the signal. More of the German side of things, and when I say German, I mean kind of like old school valve preamps. Tab Telefunken, they kind of coined the whole of that side of things, and there are American versions that kind of come close or have been inspired by that. Like, again, Universal Audio have a really, really great tube preamp. DBX have the 676, which is quite literally in front of me right here, and I love that thing. You also have a British counterpart of that as well, which is TL Audio, which I have a stereo compressor in front of me here as well. All of these have similar characteristics, and they work in a different way. Often you'll find that you find more headroom depending on where it's made, or you'll find that they're designed to work with different tubes that are maybe lower gain or maybe higher breakup and higher gain. But I'll go into that maybe a little bit later on in this year, and we'll dive a bit more into tube preamps specifically. But for now, they kind of add a bit more of that really full, warm, super, I like to call it expensive low end and expensive high end. So that's something to maybe listen out for, and as I go through and kind of A/B between the two of them, between the raw audio and the affected audio, keep that in mind, and it'll kind of give you a good starting point to try and figure out where to listen to if you are new to this. So let's start off, as I say, with the Neve. I'm going to show you the raw audio first, and then we'll move on to the affected audio. So I've just got some really, really basic sample drums. They are as real as I can get at short notice. I've used some of the MIDI groove packs from Get Good Drums. They're great, by the way. There's a couple of free versions that I'm using in this that I've been able to kind of hand choose and make into a bit of a loop. And with looking for a couple of these and just kind of choosing maybe 2 or 3 of them at a whim, I was able to make a pretty decent, very varying and dynamic kind of example. So here's the raw audio, and let's properly dive in now because I've been rambling for a while. But here's the raw audio, and then I'm going to then turn on the Neve after I've stopped it, and I'll let you listen through to the whole thing. Okay, so let's turn on the Neve, and I'll show you what it looks like as well. So this is the Neve completely on as well. And off. And on. Like I said before, you kind of get what I like to call a sausage mid-range bump. And it's very, very apparent in the kind of lower mid-range, stemming up, well, kind of past down the lower subharmonic kind of frequencies. Depending on whether you're listening on good speakers or good headphones, it might not be so obvious. But the one thing that is really obvious is that there's almost this compression that happens through the signal inherently just because of the design. And Rupert Neve, unfortunately, he passed away last year, and he kind of coined for me, if you've read the blog post, you'll know about this, and it's linked in the description below on this video. But he really did coin the idea of a British sound, and without him, it probably wouldn't have inspired me to be in this position where I am today talking to you guys, because the whole reason why I even picked up an instrument, I was 6 or 7 years old, and I watched Nirvana play MTV's Unplugged, and I think it was the first ever one that they'd ever done, and I actually ended up going on to work for Martin Co Guitars before I worked for JZ, and I got to see and play Kurt's guitar, and it was cool. It was one of those that you just kind of don't expect to happen, but I guess it's kind of proof that manifestation is a thing if you want it badly enough. But that whole record for Nevermind was recorded on the Neve 8068, I think, over at Sound City. So I think Dave Grohl might actually own the same desk. It's either Dave or Sylvia Massey that have the same desk that was used on that record, which resulted in me being here. So I'm very fond of that console, of that sound. I actually have a Neve clone next to me, and you can find many of them. There's, if you are in the market for a dedicated preamp, I would say Neve is a really great way to go. You'll find that there's loads of different ones. You've got BAE, you've got obviously AMS Neve, you've got Golden Age Audio, and so many more. Stam Audio do a really great version of it as well. There's a plethora out there. So let's move on to the American side of things. So API are kind of the ones that you'd usually think of for this. And again, like I say, there we go. As I say, the API desk was an American design, as far as I'm aware. And if I'm not correct, please email me if you are a part of the blog subscriber list. I would love to know where the origins of this came from. But as far as I'm aware, it's kind of like the American sound of consoles. And to this day, they're revered in different studios. They've been responsible for everything from Stevie Wonder all the way through to Radiohead. And they are incredible preamps, and they have this smoothing transient effect where they still sound really rich and really punchy and bold in their flavor, as it were, but in a very different way to what maybe Neve or SSL sound like. So the best way for me to show you this is to then show you the raw audio and then show you the affected. So this is the raw audio again for yourselves. And now the affected audio, and I'm going to bypass and engage as we go on. I find that this is a really, really great kind of preamp emulation to use on things like guitar, where you want things to be smoothed out a little bit more. Sometimes guitars can be super pokey and really sharp. And on a drum kit, I mean, you can see this dial down here is the THD dial, and it's one of the reasons why I really like the Plugin Alliance and Lindell Audio emulations of these. Is they are, one, they're super faithful to the original design, and two, you can kind of dial in the total harmonic distortion and how hard you want to drive the preamp without actually driving the gain of the preamp. So it inherently kind of has this effect straight off the bat. So let's move on to the SSL. Now, as I said before, this is kind of also another version of the British sound in quotation marks, but again, Plugin Alliance have done a great version of this. This is not with Lindell Audio as the previous two have been, but this is what I first read as being the punchy sort of preamp, and many studios have had SSL E and G and J consoles throughout like the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're still to this day considered to be the sound of drums overall. I think Chris Lord-Alge and Tom Lord-Alge and a bunch of others really like these desks, and might even, well, to be honest, I wouldn't hesitate to say that they probably do have these desks. They have a bunch of kind of new ones that have a lot of the sounds between the E and the G desk, and on this plugin as well, you can also change between the G and the E style dynamics. And I think you can also choose between the EQ as well, between it being an E and a G style, but specifically I think on the low end, if I'm correct, and they have slightly different EQ curves. So let's work through this one again. I don't want to do too long because I know this video is already kind of catching on. But yeah, so this is the other version of a British console, in case you're wondering. Again, I'll start with the raw audio, and then I'm going to alternate between bypassed and not bypassed as we go on. There's a tightness that happens to the low end specifically. It almost feels like it almost has like a pillow put underneath it, and then it's just shaved off right at the end and tapered off. But the kick drum and the snare and the toms all sound really great with an SSL, and super punchy, really rich in the low end content. And again, I'm pushing all of these with a total harmonic distortion to exaggerate the effect. Again, it is not super obvious, and it is subtle, but it's obvious at the same time, especially when you compare and contrast these between each one of these. I'll also mention as well that Plugin Alliance allows you to actually access all of the plugins that I've already shown. And they're ones I use on almost a daily basis in the studio, depending on the artist and the kind of vibe and flavor that they're going for. So the last one I'm going to show you is one from Artura. Now, Artura are a great company. They also do their own emulation of the Neve 1073 preamp. They do also do one that not a lot of people have done. I think the only other people I can think of that might have done it are Softtube, who are, again, another great emulation company. But they've done the Trident series, and I think it's off the A series desk rather than the ATB series desk, which is the one that Pink Floyd recorded Dark Side of the Moon on. But Artura have created this plugin, which is as close, to be honest, as I've ever heard to the original TAB Telefunken 1954, 56 through to 1960 something valve preamp. And for those who aren't aware, like, valve preamps were kind of like the first thing that people used as preamps. Before that, it was basically boosting the signal via cables, and there's a bunch of weird kind of electronics that happened. And then valves came along and kind of saved the day. They saved the day so much that I actually have, like, so many of these to one side. Actually, I tell you what, to kind of, like, point this out as best as I can, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different valves just to hand, as I have various different tube preamps that I can swap and interchange different valves with, and they all have a different flavor. These ones have what's called NOS tubes, and they are NOS because it stands for new old stock. So if you find that someone says it's got new old stock, it usually means that it's something from like the 60s or the 70s or the 80s that they've found that's maybe been in someone's like attic or something, or they've managed to salvage from a broken piece of equipment, but that one piece still works. And that can be everything from a valve all the way through to a transistor or a capacitor, or some sort of integrated chip if they were around at that point. But these are, well, I mean, the only one that's really come close to it, other than Artura for me, is the Neold version, which is also within the Plugin Alliance bundle. And this video is not in any way sponsored by those guys. They're just really, really good manufacturers and really great guys, and they genuinely care about the people and the kind of plugins that they put out to people. So I highly recommend you check them out if you haven't already. But to finish this off, I'm now going to... Actually, I'll tell you what, we'll switch it up. We'll have this engaged, first of all. And this one's very, very subtle. You'll find that, and I really, really do implore you to wear good headphones or have good speakers. This is a very subtle kind of change, and I've actually driven the input quite a lot as well, and to try and make this as obvious as I can do, but it's still quite subtle. You can drive this even more and you'll find that you get a lot of distortion, especially on the low end, but that's really the kind of place that you want to be focusing in on as well. The EQ is not engaged, so any extension to the low end or to the high end, which it definitely has a massive effect on the high end, it makes it sound very expensive. It almost has like this glisten sparkle effect that is inherent in tubes. So this is it engaged, then I'm going to bypass, and then we'll go back. As I say, it's very subtle, yet very effective. And you can, like I said before as well, you can drive this until your highest content, and there are EQ options on this as well, so you can kind of compensate. I'm guessing I'm guessing at this point, but I'm guessing that it's before it hits the preamp that you can equalize, or maybe it's after the preamp and it's an effect loop of some sort. But in any case, that is the last installment of preamps. I hope you've enjoyed this. I have loved doing a focus month specifically on preamps. It's pretty much the one thing in the studio that I really focus on, having a large variety of and everything from transformers to tubes to op amps to solid state. Everything kind of has its own flavor, and I really suggest that you try and use some emulations of the preamps that you maybe think that you like before you decide to actually buy a dedicated preamp. Hopefully this video helps you on that road. In any case, if you're part of the community, then the competition is heating up, and I can't wait to announce the winners on the 5th. If you're not a part of the community already, I highly suggest you go and get involved in that. You probably won't have a chance on this month's competition, where the first prize is a BB29 from JZ. But next month is going to be very interesting, and we've got some great prizes ahead of us as well. For now, though, guys, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to subscribe or like this video, it'll probably help the channel. If not, then until next time, guys, stay creative.